Welcome to the seventh class group in Jewish history in the 20th century. And in this one, I would like to get a little bit, go a little deeper into why these things happen. We have our history book, and we've talked about it. The 20th century, as I told you, was responsible. The Zohar says, and I've quoted this, haven't I, that by the year 1840, there will the well springs of knowledge will explode. You didn't hear this, evidently. Will explode, and man will get ready to go into the time of the Messianic era. 5,000 years, you had a horse and buggy. Okay, no, a better strap on the horse, a better brake for the buggy, a little better cushion, but it was always a horse. Okay. And all of a sudden, in the year 1840, and the Zohar predicted it 2,000 years before that, in the year 1840, we went from the horse and buggy to the steam engine, to the auto, to the plane, to the moon, in 129 years. In 129 years. An unprecedented leap. You would have thought, well, we went to the steam engine, and we went to combustion, so we would have stayed at that for another 5,000 years. But no. Everything in science went. And I remember 25 years ago they said our knowledge was doubling every 5 years. Now it's quadrupling and 10 times every 2 years, something like that. There you go, right? Something like that. In other words, our knowledge. So this prediction by the Zohar we've seen come through in our own lives and the lives of our parents. And some of our grandparents lived in an age when there was nothing. Man didn't fly, and now we're on the moon. And now we take pictures of Mars. What? Men. You want to turn on your? You want to turn on? If you want to turn on your mic, please. 1903 at Kitty Hawk, but I'm talking about our grandparents. My father was born in 1912. Okay, so my grandfather lived before 1903. Okay. All right. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is, why don't we just leave their mic? Turn your mics on and face them towards you. Turn it on. Just turn the switch to up. Okay? Is it on now?
Red light.
Okay. And turn the on up and the other one up. Okay? Move it towards you. Can you hear him?
Hello? Shalom?
Can you hear him? Okay, fine. Leave it loud. Will that stay?
Okay.
And yours is on? Okay, just leave them on. All right. Both of you. So, this is an unprecedented leap. You go to the cemetery in Queens, or a cemetery near the Throgs Neck Bridge. You will see a cemetery where kids in the 20s and 30s died left and right. Parents were burying kids. Even in our grandparents' generation, and our parents' generation in Europe, the infant mortality rate was sky high. In Europe, people died in their 20s and 30s, and nobody knew why. There were no MRIs. There were no reason. People didn't know. They just died, and they buried them. The infant mortality rate was sky high. You see in the 30s there, the kids died of pneumonia, diphtheria, all kinds of these things before the sulfa drugs, before the penicillin came in. All of a sudden, we are living in an incredible time. A time of medical advancement in the 20th century. A time of technological advancement, and yet in that same time, we killed 100 million people. 50 million of them between 1937, the Spanish-American War, and 1939. Give me 50 million people in a period of 6-7 years. 100 million people over the 20th century. 100 million people over the 20th century. And what is this about? Why? Why does it happen? First of all, you should know the Gemara says a very interesting thing. The Gemara says, this you'll quote, like this. The Umas Olam, the nations of the world, not the Jews, the nations of the world, the Gemara in Chulun Daf Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph. Yishku eschori shloshim kesef, They counted my wages, 30 pieces of silver. It's in Pasuk in Zechariah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Eilu Shloshim Tzadikei Umos Ha'olam. These are the 30 righteous Gentiles. She'umos Ha'olam is kaimim aleim. That the nations of the world survive because of 30 righteous Gentiles. Were it not for them, or if there was a lack of them, there would be horror in the world. You might want to understand this Gemara and say there would be no world. I would say the world can slip almost down to nothing. But the survival, when you lose 100 million people in the 20th century, you could honestly say that there weren't 30 righteous Gentiles at that time. You heard of the Lamed Vovnik, the 36, all kinds of 36 righteous Jews, 36 righteous this. 30, if there are not 36 righteous Gentiles, the world won't exist. 30 righteous Gentiles. Gemara is cool. So what has happened here? If you want to understand what happened, you have to go back to Parshas Noach, story of Noah, and the story of the Migdal Bavel, the Tower of Babel. That was the first technological advancement. Rabbi Yonasan Eibshis and Tiferes Yonasan says that, what do they say? Hava nil b'na levainim, let us build bricks and fire, and we will go and we will go up to heaven. And they want to make war with HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavayocho, with God. So Rabbi Yonasan Eibshis, who lived in the 18th century, I believe, approximately in the 1700s, said, or between 1600 and 1700, in that area, he said they had koach hapilver, which is, they had dynamite. They wanted to blow up things. So what is so dangerous about mankind in the Tower of Babel? So what happened in the Tower of Babel, Barry? So God changed their languages and spread them out all over the face of the earth. This is my interpretation. The Tower of Babel, the Migdal Babel, was the first technological advancement in the world. And when man gets his hands on technology, he becomes, his animal instincts instinct to conquer comes out to a tremendous point. Let's build it, let's do. And how do they want to do it? They wanted to do it with one language. They have one language. It was a one world government. It was a government of people who got into power and said there ain't going to be United Nations, not going to be world like that. It's going to be the New World Order, the time of Noah, one world. Everything is Eurodollars or whatever it was and then. Everything is one economy. There's a global economy. And we don't have to conquer this nation and this nation and this nation. We don't have to deal with South Africa and China and India and Nepal and this country and that country. We're all one country. We're all one, the same monetary system. And the guy who sits on the top of that tower, he's the boss. A world dominating figure. That's what was. So what's the whole story of the Tower of Babel? The Tower of Babel is one person can't get into so much power. The one language, one this, one that. Because I'll get to, because that brings terrible danger to the world. And the two go together. The technological advancement of building the Tower of Babel goes together with one language, one nation, and one dictator. So God says you can't have this. There has to be a little democracy in the world. So he mixed up their languages. He confused it, and they went and they got their own places. And this guy was a dictator here. This guy was a president here. This guy was a something there. All these things began to happen. All right. And when they began to happen, that's when the world was safer. When there was a dissenting vote. What happened in World War II? Seems to me the same technological explosion, or much greater. The same technological explosion, and with that comes the base instinct of man. And that base instinct of man says to him, conquer. Make it all yours. Do the Drag Nochosten. Go drive to the east. Make your one. that God doesn't want. And that results in destruction and disaster, which is why 100 million people were killed in World War in this 20th century. That's the danger. That's what happens. Igor, you want to say something? Please flick on your microphone and hold it up so we can hear Igor.
I believe Torah records an earlier advance in technology. It says that Noah made life easier, and Gemara interprets that as he invented a plow. That was the first technological advancement that's recorded.
Well, I'm not saying
that was just before the world was destroyed.
Whether he made the plow or not, he certainly wasn't building a tower to shoot rockets off of. That's what that. What?
The flood.
The flood came after.
That's just before the flood.
Yeah, but the Migdal Babel comes. The Tower of Babel comes after the flood, and you can't compare the invention of a plow to the invention of a tower in which they would shoot rockets off of. That's what he said. They would shoot rockets. They wanted to shoot rockets off into heaven. All right, that's a tremendous accomplishment.
Also, the 100 million seems like a very low number.
That's for the 20th century.
Yeah, it seems like a very low number. If Stalin killed 20 million and Hitler killed 40 million, that's
50 million.
So that's 70 million right there in the span of 20 years.
But the difference is, and let's say you're right, but don't forget the technology did not exist to kill people in mass before that, the way it did at that time. The technology to kill 12,000 Jews a day at Auschwitz, 12,000 Hungarian Jews in the summer of 1944 did not exist in Auschwitz alone. I heard 12. Okay, I mean they were burning them outside. I heard 12. Okay, I'm not going to. But the point is that technology did not exist. Okay, the reason so many were killed is because of the invention of the Gatling gun, which was 100 years or 50, 75 years before that. But the machine gun, the invention of the tank, the invention of the plane, the ability to drop bombs.
They used that in World War I.
Yeah, but the point is, but let's take your figure of 70 million and add another 30 million. I would love to. What?
I think it's.
Let's say it's more than 100 million. That only proves my point. There was not unprecedented amount of people killed because it's zelu umazeh, this opposite that. So the more technology you have, the more greed you have. Greed is something. If I hold this power, I want to do. I want to. And the 30 umas olam, the 30 righteous was wavering. It didn't exist. It was lie after lie. It was denial after denial. It was no, we don't have to worry about this. This is not going to happen. The first reports of the killing of Jews was said that they made up the stories like that in World War I. It's not true. So this killing of 100+ million people came about with a concomitant accompanying advancement in technology. Because the first thing that man ever wanted to do with his power is not to create for good, but to destroy. And what happened after that is an offshoot of that. Atomic power did not come about because we wanted to light up Cincinnati. Atomic power came out because we wanted to destroy Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We have the first to have the bomb. The piston engine in a car didn't come about because of the piston engine in a car. It came about because people got together and they made a cannon tube and they put and they made this explosion. They put a cannonball in to shoot to kill. Then later they said, we can hook this up to a timing chain and hook this up to this. Man didn't sit down and say to himself, let me sit down and invent the greatest things in the world. Penicillin was invented in a wartime lab by accident.
Penicillin is described in the Gemara.
I'm talking about in our day and age. It's from a bread. I'm talking about in our day and age. Okay, so a lot of things. But what I'm trying to say is modern day penicillin was. In other words, when the money is let loose, then the creativity flies. We can take the people in this room right here, just the three of us. If we had the money and we didn't have to go out and work all day, we could create some of the best things for mankind. But we have to. When the money starts to flow, then people have the time to create and to do. and then they can they can make advancements. Then they have the incentive. The incentive is money and power.
Men invent stuff when he's too lazy to do something.
Men invent stuff. Well, no, I would disagree with that. I would say that men invent things when it will give them power and money. That's when they will invent.
But the time difference between
you want to hold up your mic?
Can
you pick him up? Can you pick him up?
The time difference between a cannon and a gasoline engine is almost 300 years. Chinese already had.
The Chinese had 5,000 years, but right. But the incentive to create came about with the war. You need
carriage.
Horseless
carriage kind of came.
Horseless carriage came about because somebody horseless carriage came about in the time of wars. Horseless carriage came about in actually the beginning of the 20th century.
1880s, 1890s.
Yeah, but not on a basis for the consumer. Not on a basis. It was the wartime economy, and you had wars in the 1800s, late 1800s. You had plenty of wars. You had. In other words, it was a wartime economy that created these things. When did rocketry come about? What was the advancement of rocketry? The advancement of rocketry was that Hitler gave money to Werner von Braun and Peenemünde to shoot rockets. That they sponsored and they backed it. The greatest scientific advancements in rocketry came about during World War II. To bomb London, okay, from Peenemünde, and yes, absolutely, and it was these secrets, it was these advancements. Von Braun had the slave labor to set it up. He had the money and he had the backing from looted money. He had the backing from Jewish slave labor and looted money. So advancement creates greed as a sort of a symbiotic relationship. Advancement creates greed. Greed creates the need for more greed and advancement, etc. Our greatest advancements came about because of the fact that there was something in it for me. The Gemara talks about this too. The Gemara says, Yuma Samachtes. The Gemara brings down that they captured the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. They killed it. For idolatry, the evil inclination. The Anshe Knesset HaGadol, the men of the Great Assembly, captured it, killed it. Then they captured the Yetzer Hara for procreation. Are we okay? Clear? They captured the Yetzer Hara for procreation. The libidinous Yetzer Hara. Okay? And they said to that Yetzer Hara, we're going to destroy you. The Yetzer Hara says to it, you destroy me, nobody's going to go to work. The chickens won't lay eggs. The world will come to an end. Because the drive, the sex drive, the libido, the drive for power, the drive to acquire is all one drive. And God gave it in a pure way that man would create the world, pru urvu. And so he put it into one package, and this one package that he put it into was a package where a man would procreate, and he would want to acquire so that he could protect his brood. It's all together. But when this gets out of hand, then it becomes wars. Is everything okay? Because I see a lot of... we having a problem with the audio? Okay, fine. Let's go into these Gemaras. Any comments? Any thoughts?
Basically, they captured it. Is this a force of energy that they contained it in?
Whatever they captured, they captured. They captured the force that drove a person, that drove people, that drove men to procreate, because they didn't want incest and immorality and other kinds of things. They did get the incest drive to back off on that a little bit. What? Did they get that? But the fact is, it's all one drive. Whether it means it literally or whether it means it allegorically and it's trying to give a message, I don't know. I accept it literally until I know better. But the point is, this kind of thing, this drive, it's all the same. Man is looking. Where do you see this from? Where do you see this from? You see it from a pasuk in the Torah. You understand how I'm relating this to the 20th century? You see it from a pasuk in the Torah, one of the strangest, most difficult psukim to teach young people. In Devarim, Deuteronomy, Ki seitze la milchama alevecha. You go out to war, and God will put your enemies in your hands. So Isa bashivya, and you will see in captivity Eshes Yefastor, an attractive woman. Rashi says Afilo Eshes Ish, even if she's married. V'chashakta ba, and you will desire her. L'kachta l'chol isha, and you should take her. You can take her for your wife. You bring her in her house, shave her hair, make her look ugly, etc. And you'll have a sense of her more. But so the Torah tells you can take a woman on the battlefield, even if she's not single, and take her into the house. What kind of thing is this? So Rashi says an incredible thing. Lo dibra, he brings a Gemara. Lo dibra Torah ela keneged Yetzirah. That the Torah is only talking in relationship to the Yetzirah, to the evil inclination. Because if the Torah did not allow the man to take her, he would do it by Isser. So the Torah says, okay, you can do it. Question arrives, what do you mean? So why doesn't it say that by eating treif? Why doesn't it say by Nachazar, by Shabbos, by all those other things? That the Torah says, okay, in this particular case, it's okay. In other words, it's permitted. It's not the greatest thing, but it's permitted. Why? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Let's say if you see a woman in the battlefield,
He see, Ra'isa, and you will see, and if you see, okay. Doesn't mean you go looking for it, you see it, okay? That's not relevant to what I'm talking about. The point I want to make.
But if you can't help yourself,
well,
it's missing here.
what do you call it says this. The Gemara says, Yitzur shel Odom miskabra lo b'chol yom. And I'm making this into a libido tale, but I'm talking about the relationship of war and the libido, etc., and they understand the 20th century. The Gemara says, Yitzur shel Odom miskabra lo b'chol yom. That a man's libido conquers him every day. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't help him, he would lose. So I asked my Rabbi, what are you talking about? Where is the Bechira Chofshi? I already discussed this with you before. Where is the free will? You're telling me I can't win against the libido. Where is the free will? So he says you have the free will to ask Hashem to help you. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted the world to be so, to be populated. As David HaMelech said, Lola tohu bara, and tell him God did not create it to be empty. Lo sheves yitzorah. He created it to be populated. So he created a Yetzirah that nobody can stand. So what do? We channel it. We take a one-way. The time ago they had maid servants, they had concubines, they had more than one wife, and now they say that now it's only one wife. But the fact is, the Yetzirah will win if not without a Kodesh Baruch Hu's help. A piece of treif meat, I'm held responsible. I don't need God's help to say I'm not going to eat the treif meat, but I need God's help to keep me from acts of the libido. That's it. The libido is directly related, has built in within it, I'm going to conquer so I can protect this woman that I want to procreate with. It's all one thing. You hear what I'm saying? So he more says, the Yetzirah says, you stop me, it's all one thing. They say, well, can't we separate? No, it's all one package. You have to take the package. What makes us work and have a family and do these things is a very interesting package. And to conquer also. Pru urvu, be fruitful and multiply, umilu es haaretz, and fill up the land, v'chiv shuha, and conquer it. It's one thing. Now I sound like I'm trying to talk to the United States Marine Corps and go out there, Semper Fi, go take over the world. I'm trying to explain that when a person has the acquisition of power, then everything else, Lord Acton said, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If a person has the ability of power, everything else comes. It is no coincidence that Nazi Germany, or the period prior to the Nazi Germany, what was that Joel Grey in the movie? What was that movie called? Cabaret. Okay, he talks about what, Barry? About the moral decay of Germany at that time. The moral decay of Germany. It was an incredible thing. Incredible thing. All right. There was a terrible moral decay at the time of Germany, yeah? This is what cabaret was about. Because once you have the ability to do certain things, you stop thinking.
Didn't they have these horrible battles with
Carthage, you mean?
Carthage and Alexander the Great?
Yeah, but what was their ability to kill?
Well, they had chariots and spears and catapults.
You can with one machine. One.
Yeah.
What do you think?
They didn't kill millions.
What do you
They
think
killed
democracy
hundreds.
came about? Because the people and the rulers all of a sudden, wouldn't it be a good idea if we should give up this power and let the people vote for us, vote us in and out of office? You think that's what happened? No, they invented the Gatling gun. All of a sudden, the guy that you could just overrun with force, he'll kill 50 of your men with his machine gun. So you have to give it to them. It was a back off. It was a back off kind of thing. What was I saying before that? It was something I wanted to say about.
We were talking about the unparalleled evil from these inventions.
The unparalleled.
So as the technology increased, the immorality and the viciousness
Okay, I want to tell you one story.
were proportional.
I want to tell you one story. Did I ever tell you a story about Mengele? There's an incredible story on the tape on Mengele. Mengele, I think, was in the South American country. He was Argentina, but I'm not sure which one it was at the time.
Woman they sent to trap him?
No, this was a story about a guy. Now, Mengele murdered. It was shot through the head over 1,000 infants. He personally murdered, and he sent 1 million people to their death. Left, at the ramp.
Right.
This is a story that I didn't sleep that night when I heard the story. What power does to a person. Mengele was, after he'd killed these people, he was hiding in Argentina. And this guy on the tape, I'll play the tape for you one day. It's a video. Says he was living in my house. I'm doing a program now. Okay? The guy says he was living in my house, and my house was around a corner that was very dangerous, and there were a lot of automobile accidents there. Listen to this. One day there was a bad automobile accident, and Mengele says, you hear, Bear? Mengele says, I got to go out and save this guy. Did you see this? Did you hear this? He says, you're crazy. He says, nobody knows you're a doctor. And if you come out and they see you're a doctor, he says, they'll say, what's a doctor living in this dump for? Okay? And why is he here? And then they'll find out who you are. Okay? But Mengele said, what do you mean? I'm a doctor. I took the Hippocratic Oath. I have to go and help this person. Huh? Guy killed, sent 1 million people just personally.
Did it in the name of science.
Personally. Can you believe the story? I'm a doctor. I got to do it. He did it in the name of science. I think more than that. That's an incredible story. He had no compunction, no problem shooting 1,000 babies in the back of the head.
Because they were Jewish now. The driver thought it was not
Whatever,
Jewish.
but I don't think it was that.
He wanted to see the effect.
How many? See, after you kill 10, you know what effect is.
He was a little slow.
There's a pasuk that says, I think where is it? In Yirmiyah, I think it is. In Jeremiah, I think. It says, Zovchei Adam agolim yishakun. Those people who sacrifice humans, they kiss cows. The guards at Auschwitz and Treblinka threw Jewish babies up and shot them, and then they fed their German Shepherd dogs the best food in the world. They treated them nicely and gently. Hitler had a Alsatian dog, Blondie, which he had to destroy right before he was killed, before he killed himself. The same people who have the ability to murder will all of a sudden show sensitivity. The man who captured Eichmann told me, and I have it on tape, he says, the first thing, he says, he passed your house, Eichmann's house, and Eichmann had a kid in Argentina. And he says, I saw your son. He says, did you kill him? He says, no, I didn't kill your son. And he was always very sensitive in certain areas. What this means is that I don't think it was a matter of science or Jews. I think what it was a matter of war and greed. It blinds you totally to this. Totally. Now that's what I want to say about the Parshas Kiseitze. A man is on a battlefield. I don't care if he's got a PhD, and all the Germans who had PhDs, who were part of the Einsatz group and that went into Russia and mowed down the Jews in Russia, following the Wehrmacht in there, following the German army. Many of them were affected and were sick of it, but a lot of them weren't. Most of them were not. When you're on the battlefield, you have been reduced to a level of survival. You're not a man. You're an animal. You think like an animal. You are shooting. You are this. You try that with a woman on the street, you go to jail for the rest of your life. You do that, but on war, you're not a human being. You're an animal. You're on the surviving mode. You're watching. All your instincts are basic. Survival, procreation, my seed going to the next generation. You're not thinking like a human being. It was the case with, I think that was the case with what's his name? Mengele. He is a graduate. He comes from a family. His family owns the Mengele farm. Like an international harvester in Germany, and he came from a fine family, and he was a sophisticated guy, and all the people thought he was very handsome and very sophisticated. When you're on that level, the world got down to that level. The world got down to that level where, and what was the difference? The world had been at that level before. But the world never had tanks and planes and bombs and Mausers and Lugers and all those things. The world never had that. And because the world never had that, you didn't have this. That is why we are capable of doing it again. We are capable of doing it again. The only reason there's been peace in the world is because everybody's got his gun hand on his holster, on his nuclear holster. Everybody's saying, okay, you want to draw? I'll draw next. The events at this time of this taping of Pakistan, where the taping of this program was when Benazir Bhutto, who was running for Pakistani Prime Minister, was assassinated. In a world that has nuclear weapons. As the world drops down, that's what happened in World War in the 20th century. Mankind reached the level of an animal, of kiseitzi l'melchama alevecha, and the battlefield, and they had never before experienced what their technology could do. Listen to what I'm saying. They had never experienced that. Now they know what that technology can do. That's why it's so important to have your Holocaust Center, because what you have to tell people is, this is what technology can do. This is what happens when man advances to makes his own Tower of Babel and advances to that point and can do this. This is what happens when a doctor who murdered 1 million people says, I got to go out and help that person on the street. I'm a doctor. Because that moment is a moment mamish of insanity. Turn on.
It seems that...
Are you getting him now? Yoel, are we getting him? Go ahead, Barry.
It seems that all that technology was really a plague for us because the morality was very primitive. That once we got out of the bow and arrow and the catapult, and then we were able to destroy tens and hundreds of 100 million people.
But you see, that's the way Shlomo HaMelech says, King Solomon says in Ecclesiastes and Koheles, Zelu umazeh, this opposite that. That everything for good has a bad side. The Kabbalists say from the greatest good comes the greatest evil, from the greatest evil comes the greatest good. From the greatest good, technology can come the greatest evil, Auschwitz, and from the greatest evil, war can come penicillin.
I see. Well, now they're trying to destroy us again. I wonder what good is going to happen here, and what the next year or two. It could be a huge battle between Iran and and the people who want to destroy us again.
I have a hunch. I'm becoming an optimist in my old age. What would you think the chances are of a country that brother fought against brother, family against family, and they slew 600,000 people? What chance would you give that country, say 150 years down the road?
Well, Iran, I think between Iran and Iraq, they lost a million.
What am I talking about, Barry?
Iran and Iraq.
No. Talking about the United States of America. We had a civil war.
We had 600,000. Yeah.
600,000 American boys were killed. What? What? There is an echo online. On the TV too? Uh-huh.
Were that many people killed in the Civil War?
Yeah, 600,000.
That's a lot.
600,000. Wow. All right.
So the odds were against it surviving. Well, that was Lincoln rose to that.
We did. We survived.
Yeah.
We
Well,
survived.
a great leader then.
All right, we'll continue this next week.
Okay.
This is JMC, the Jewish Media Channel. This is JMC, the Jewish Media Channel.